As crazy as it sounds, week 7 of the NFL season is already here. And after what I thought was kind of a disappointing slate for week 6, we have some really fun football games. A really solid London game. The 4 o'clock slate for my East Coast folks looks chef's kiss impeccable. And 2 really fun Monday night football contests that'll have me on the East Coast probably up till 1:30 in the morning. Let's talk about it all. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we have what is being deemed the Icy Hot Bowl. As for the second time ever in NFL history, 2 40-plus-year-old starting quarterbacks will be squaring off as the 4-1 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Cincinnati to take on the 2-4 Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Cincinnati last week traded for Joe Flacco. They threw him out there in that Packers game, and it was a better showing for Cincinnati than anything that they had with Jake Browning, because simply put, Joe Flacco just didn't turn the ball over at the rate that Browning was. He played a clean game. He was able to get the ball to Jamar Chase, let him cook. And I think that we're only going to see the Cincinnati offense improve under Flacco. I think he came in last week kind of on a short week, didn't have as much of the playbook connection with these guys. And I think things will progress to be better for Cincinnati as just kind of the season progresses with Flacco. The big question is, does that matter? Is their defense good enough to hold up? Is their offensive line good enough to protect Flacco and develop a real run game? Those are the big questions with Cincinnati. For Pittsburgh, man, they're 4-1, and they're 1 win away from being 5-1 and in a real position to be hosting a playoff game this year. Obviously, Baltimore with their issues and injuries to Lamar Jackson are super far behind the 8 ball. They're going to be 4 games back of Pittsburgh if Pittsburgh wins this, and I don't know if there's any catching them at that point. Cincinnati, like we mentioned, Joe Burrow done for the year. If Cincinnati could win this game, though, and then Pittsburgh's 4-2 and they're 3-4 with a win over Pittsburgh, I think Cincinnati got a little bit of juice to them to feel alive. And Cleveland, they're just completely out of it. When it comes to my keys for this particular game, you listen, Thursday Night Football, we've seen a lot of upsets. So would it shock me if the Bengals won this game? No, it would not. Do I think Pittsburgh is a juggernaut? Even with their record, I do not. But I do think that Pittsburgh's the better team, and I think that there's kind of a clear path to victory for them. On the offensive side of the ball, keep doing what you've been doing. They've been having a pretty good mix of the run-pass game, and I think on this Cincinnati defense, they should be able to do whatever they want. I know Pittsburgh's in the market for another wide receiver. That would be a huge addition for them, because right now it feels like they're rolling with DK Metcalf and 4 tight ends out there a lot of the time. Just play mistake-free football. Rodgers is going to have to make a couple throws here and there. Last week he did that with Connor Hayward on a touchdown, where Rodgers is just making throws that a Steelers quarterback since Big Ben couldn't make. And I think that's what's elevated this Pittsburgh Steelers offense this year. But ultimately, the story of this game will be what their defense can do against Cincinnati. Can they prevent Flacco and those receivers from getting anything going? I think it's relatively possible. And it's not that I think Flacco is going to turn the ball over a ton, but I think Pittsburgh's defense has the ability to create a lot of negative plays and a negative game script for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's offensive line isn't that great. And even with having a bye week, Pittsburgh is second in the NFL with 20 sacks. Whether it's Herbig, TJ Watt, Derek Armand, Hayward getting pressure, blitzers, whoever it may be, Pittsburgh's able to get pressure and get home. And with Ramsey and Joey Porter Jr., I think that they could live in man coverage long enough to really get some pressure in the face of Flacco. And at 40 years old, the mobility is not quite there. So despite us seeing some upsets recently on Thursday Night Football, I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game by a score of 24-16. I do think it's technically a one-possession game, but it does feel like something Pittsburgh's controlled all the way throughout. The London game, it's actually pretty good this week as the 4-2 Rams take on the 4-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. I feel like we've been kind of getting duped with some of these 9:30 a.m. kickoff games, and this is actually a pretty solid one. No Puka Nacua, it looks like, for the Los Angeles Rams. I'm really interested to see what their offense looks like without Puka, because some people have criticized the Rams saying that they're a little too Puka dependent. And while I think that it's possible that's the truth, also Puka's a top 5 receiver in football, and he's kind of always open. Like, why would Stafford not just throw him the football? So with Devontae Adams, with Tutu Atwell, Kyron Williams, their tight end room, I'm interested to see where they stack up against a Jacksonville defense that, don't get me wrong, it hasn't been bad, but I think it's a little overstated how good it is. They feel very turnover dependent to me in terms of yards allowed. They're kind of middle of the pack. They're not this top 10 unit. They can get pressure on the opposing quarterback, and they can force turnovers, which isn't an accident by any means. It is certainly the kind of the scheme of the defense, force the opposing quarterback into bad plays. But I just wonder, with a bet like Stafford on the other side, you could see there 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The guy's got a 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio this year. He's just not making those mistakes as it is. But with Puka out and with maybe a feel to press the ball a little bit more, can they force Stafford into a turnover or two? Kyron Williams has had some fumbling issues. That, to me, is how Jacksonville wins this football game. If the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win, they're going to have to force turnovers out of this Rams offense. And it's possible without Puka that Stafford does kind of like, hey, let's see what we got and chuck it, and it turns into an interception. But even with that said, Stafford without Puka, I trust him more than Trevor Lawrence against this Rams defense. We saw last week that the Seattle Seahawks, their defensive front, was able to bully the Jags offensive line, get pressure on Trevor, and the offense never had it going. The Rams defensive line is better. Byron Young, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, those guys are going to be able to get home on Trevor Lawrence. And I think that there's a large possibility that we see a strip sack in this game, because we know since he's entered the league, I believe Trevor Lawrence has the most fumbles of any player. Verse, Byron Young, like those guys are absolute monsters. They are fast as hell for defensive edge rushers, and they're going to be able to get pressure home on Jacksonville. So despite no Puka Nacua, I'm still taking the Rams to win this game. I think it's a fun London game. I think it's competitive. I think it's one that's worth getting up and watching. But give me the Rams to win 30-20 in London. The 4-2 struggling Philadelphia Eagles travel to Minnesota to take on the 3-2 Vikings, who are coming off of a bye week. The big story in this game, of course, is can Philadelphia find their offensive rhythm? They haven't found it all year. They're coming off of winning the Super Bowl, and we saw in February and in January in playoff games last year, and really just throughout last season, their offense was a top 5 unit in football. Saquon Barkley was the best player in football based on the NFL Top 100. Jalen Hurts had his moments. Obviously, he was the Super Bowl MVP. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith were in the conversation for the best wide receiver duo in football. And this year, the offense hasn't resembled that at all. They are 30th in the NFL right now in yards per game, only better than the Tennessee Titans, who just fired their head coach, and the Cleveland Browns, who have gone from Joe Flacco to Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. The offensive talent for Philadelphia does not match the production that's been there. Is this a year from hell with Kevin Patullo at offensive coordinator, where Philly never figures it out? Or is this a storm that they're able to weather and come out of it? And if so, is this the week that they come out of it? Those are the big questions for Philly. And as somebody who comes up on here and gives opinions like as if I know the truth, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. I don't know where we're at with Philadelphia's offense, because as you guys know, I am an Eagles fan. My concerns for this offense are real. Schematically, they are too predictable. Lane Johnson called them out on it, and I think he was right to do so, because that is the biggest issue for me. Opposing defenses, when you watch Philly play, know what Philly's going to do. They are reacting to it before it even happens. 3 straight second halves of 0 points. When you get into that locker room and when you make adjustments, opposing defensive coordinators are adjusting, and Philly has no answers. You look at that Thursday night football game. Was it a bad performance from Jalen Hurts? No doubt about it. Philly scored 17 first half points. That is not a bad offensive showing in the first half. 0 in the second half. Those are the kinds of things that will ultimately kill you in the NFL. Am I worried about Philly's defense? Not particularly. They were out Nolan Smith, who they're still out for the next 2 weeks, but they were also out Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell, the 2 best players on their defense. Short week, and Jackson Dart, a rookie quarterback, had a sensational game. Those things, you'd like the Eagles to have some cornerback depth for sure, and I think that they can go acquire that, but that doesn't feel like an issue that's going to stick once the Eagles are healthy. The Eagles' offensive, unit is healthy relatively. Landon Dickerson's out, but to be fair, the offense wasn't great when he was in, so that's a big concern. The Vikings have the second best pass defense in football in terms of yards allowed per game. You can run on them. I'll be interested to see if Saquon Barkley, this is the breakout game for him. I could certainly see that being the case. The offense has come out and had quotes all week about how productive they've been, how great they feel. Morale seems to be up. So, we'll see. If they open up this game with a 3-and-out or back-to-back 3-and-outs, could all that confidence go down the drain and this game get away from them? I think it's possible. And it looks like Quinyon Mitchell is going to play. I'm recording this Thursday morning. He practiced on Wednesday, so we'll see. If he's not out there, I don't think anybody on this team could cover Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I think it's possible that even if the Eagles offense finds their way, the Vikings are more competitive in this game than people would realize, because let's just say Quinyon Mitchell plays. Jordan Addison's going to eat. Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson cannot cover. And the Vikings offensive line, I think, is good enough at its current healthy state to prevent the Eagles from generating a real pass rush. Now, I do think we're going to see Carson Wentz in this game based on some of the quotes that I've seen from Kevin O'Connell about J.J. McCarthy. It just doesn't feel like he's going to play. So a bit of a Carson Wentz revenge game here could be. I'm going to still stay on the optimistic side. I'm going to bet with talent here. I'm going to say that the Philadelphia Eagles do come out the storm here and look good. I don't think it is a dominant win by any means, but I'm going to take Philly to win this game 27-24 in Minnesota. The 1-5 New Orleans Saints travel to Chicago to take on the 3-2 Bears. And I think in previous years, this is a game where, yep, this would be one that the Bears drop. They just get a big win on Monday Night Football, a little bit of a revenge factor. Caleb beats Jaden Daniels. 6 days later, you got a team coming into town that you should be, favored over. People expect you to win. If you're going to be a viable playoff team this year, you're going to win this game. And this would be a game traditionally the Chicago Bears would ultimately drop. Bears fans know it. I know it. NFL fans know it. I don't think that that's the case in this one. I think that there are some key factors with the Chicago Bears that make me think that post-bye week and in this Ben Johnson era, things are different. Things are different for the Chicago Bears. They are cutting back on the negative plays. We see that week to week. They got to get those penalties down, but Caleb himself is cutting down on the negative plays. I didn't feel like he took any terrible sacks in that Washington game. I felt like that was probably a real point of emphasis coming out of that bye week. And while Caleb is by no means a perfect player, I'm not even going to say he's a fringe top 10 quarterback, there are signs there of this guy play to play. There are some plays where he looks like a top 5 quarterback in football. He has the ceiling of the guy he was drafted to be, absolutely. As well, Chicago has the best turnover differential in football. In terms of how many takeaways they get versus how many they give, they are the highest in the plus column of any team in the NFL. When you are taking the ball away from the opposing team and not giving it back and winning the possession battle, you're going to win a lot of football games in the NFL. The Chicago Bears, I think, with that philosophy and now seemingly understanding the roles that their running backs need to be in with Swift and Monangai, it's not going to be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in the way that was humming for Ben Johnson in Detroit, but we know Ben Johnson wants to run the football. And seeing him utilize DeAndre Swift in the proper way, and I even think Monangai in the proper way in that Monday game versus Washington, and having a legit rushing attack to open things up for Caleb to get the ball to Rome Odunze, to DJ Moore, to who I believe is an emerging weapon on this offense, Luther Burden, will be the key to Chicago making that jump from, yeah, they're a frisky team, they're competitive week to week, to hold on. Are the Chicago Bears going to be in the playoffs? I think it's very possible there. And then when you look at New Orleans, man, I know that they're 1-5. They fight, man. New Orleans fights week to week. They possibly could have beaten Buffalo if a touchdown wasn't overturned. Last week, they were giving the New England Patriots a run for their money, who we'll talk about the Patriots in a second, but I really do think they have a shot to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. New Orleans was keeping up with them. Spencer Rattler has actually been pretty solid this year, and what we thought was a really good quarterback class coming out in college has quickly deteriorated to not that way. Maybe they run it back with Rattler next year and try and improve the roster around him. I think Kellen Moore's offense is creative, is good. Now, I do think it's also possible that New Orleans loses this game, gets to 1-6, and kind of blows it up and is like, fire sale, Kamara, Chris Olave, Cam Jordan, like, let's tear the house down. And then in the second half of the year, play some really bad football. But I also think it's possible that New Orleans fights and claws and Chicago falls back into their old tendencies and loses this game. I'm going to pick Chicago to win. I'm kind of hoping for the best when it comes to the Bears. I'm going to say the Bears win this game 28-17. I think that Chicago has a real win here rather than the 25-24 wins that they've had in back-to-back games now. A real comfortable win for the Bears in this spot. The Miami Dolphins at 1-5 take on the Cleveland Browns at 1-5. And oh my goodness, if there is a worst game of the week, this has got to be it. The over-under 40.5. The Browns favored by 2.5. I've lost all hope in the Miami Dolphins. And to be fair, I never had any. But Mike McDaniel, it's just not a fit with this team. They're 0-3 on the road, so they don't travel well. Tells me that they don't have a good culture, don't have good team camaraderie. And if you didn't need to just trust me for saying it, just go listen to Tua at a press conference, man. People aren't coming to the players-only meetings, got to hold people accountable. Meanwhile, in the loss last week, Tua throws 3 interceptions, but he's talking about other people that got to be held accountable. Not good internal leadership, but it's like, Tua, you're the quarterback. You make $55 million a year. You're the team leader. So they are just a mess, and I think they're a fire sale waiting to happen. I don't know if they actually move young talent like A-Chain and Waddle off of this offense, or if that's something that the GM's like, no, like we need that core going forward. But I could certainly see one of their edge rushers or both of them in Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips moved, because their defensive line's just not even getting home despite having this great talent. You get a guy like Chop Robinson more reps going forward. So the Dolphins are in a really bad spot. To be fair, the Browns aren't exactly in a good spot either. They're 1-5, but at least the Browns have kind of shown me some talent on their team to be impressed with. Quinshon Judkins, I do think, is really special. I know he's coming off kind of a down week overseas, but I do think that Judkins is a solid football player. Harold Fannin is the team's leading receiver. He was the tight end that they drafted, so he's doing pretty solid. Jerry Jeudy, he's okay. Isaiah Bond, that's a cool piece to have some investment in. They obviously have a good defense with Garrett and Denzel Ward, and I trust their coaching staff with Stefanski. So I am going to roll with the Cleveland Browns to win this football game. I think that it's the last game Mike McDaniel coaches as a member of the Miami Dolphins. If they could ever trade Tua, they'd probably be looking to trade him this offseason. I think if you secretly asked the GM, hey, you could just get out of that contract right now for free and not even get anything back, he would say yes. But can't do it that way. So, give me the Cleveland Browns to win this game. It's going to be on the back of Judkins, I think. I think they're going to be able to run the ball all over Miami. Give me the Browns 27-17 in Cleveland. The New England Patriots, 4-2, travel to Tennessee to take on the 1-5 Titans. The Patriots are 3-0. The 3-0 on the road, excuse me. The Patriots are number 1 seed in the AFC East right now. The Patriots, with the lowest strength of schedule remaining of any NFL team, are very viable to be the number 1 seed in the entire AFC. Me and Javon talked on the Wednesday pod a lot about the Patriots, so if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts, go check it out there. But Drake May looks like a top 10 quarterback in the sport. He's top 5 statistically right now. The Patriots, ever since Christian Gonzalez got back to that defense, are 3-0. Milton Williams and Christian Barmore have been really solid in run defense for the New England Patriots. They are accelerating their timeline a little bit faster than I thought. There are still a couple key flaws with this team that I think it's worth noting. They have absolutely zero run game. Ramondre Stevenson, I think over the last 3 weeks, is averaging under 2 yards a carry. I don't understand for the life of me, and if you are not new to the channel, you know where I'm going with this. Why the hell Travion Henderson isn't involved yet? Offensively, you drafted him in the 2nd round. You're seeing his teammate Quinshon Judkins turn into the offensive engine for the Cleveland Browns. Genty and Hampton, before he got hurt, were playing really good ball. Like, the running back class from this draft class has looked really, really solid, and you're just not giving Henderson the opportunities or looks to be that guy for you. And when you do send him out there, you're not even playing him to his strengths. He is explosive. He can turn any play into a touchdown, and they are using him as an inside zone merchant. And it's just really, really frustrating as somebody who loved Henderson as a prospect. And the team feels like they kind of, like, why did you pick him, is where I'm at with them at this point in time. But other than that, New England's playing really, really solid ball. For Tennessee, they just fired Callahan. Probably a good thing for them. Do I think that there's the possibility that you get that post-coach firing spark in the locker room and the Titans come out and compete in this football game? Yeah, I absolutely think it's possible. I think Cam Ward is a really talented player. We'll see if Ridley is playing. He's questionable. If not, you're going to have to depend on Pollard and Spears and Elik Ayamanayer. And As I'm saying that, that doesn't sound like a team that could win a game at all. But I do think that there's just a little bit of like unpredictability to what the Titans are going to be from what they were the last 6 weeks, whereas the Titans going into their film prep know what New England wants to do. That being said, not a shot in hell. I picked the Titans to win this football game. I'm going to take New England to keep on rolling, get to 5-2. New England can't afford to sleep on any of these games because, as crazy as it sounds, man, like you look at that AFC, there is a shot that the AFC playoffs run through Foxborough. It's possible. It is on the board. I'm not saying I'm predicting it, but I'm just saying it's on the board. So give me New England to win this game 30-16 in Tennessee. And what I believe is probably the biggest point spread of the week, the 2-4 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 3-3. Chiefs are coming off of a massive win over the Detroit Lions. Many believe Kansas City is back to being the best team in the NFL with just a 3-3 record. The line for this game opened at -10.5 and has been bet all the way up to -12.5. Like you could see, it's media, sharp bettors, square bettors. Everybody is loving Kansas City at this point in time. Kansas City, I believe they've struggled to cover their spread in their last few divisional games. So if you're a bettor out there, it could be something knowledgeable for you there. When I look at Kansas City, though, obviously Rashee Rice is returning to the offense this week. Their offense is going to be at full strength for the first time this year. I don't think Josh Simmons is going to play, but Jalen Moore is a fine backup. Like they have two solid left tackles after not having one last year. So obviously Brett Veach saw that issue and attacked it pretty heavily. And, you know, now you're at a point where, hey, if Simmons doesn't play, you probably didn't even notice on Sunday night that Jalen Moore was out there. Pacheco and Kareem Hunt aren't a real run game. I think that they could be in the market for a running back and really just like a change of pace back. But Mahomes, what he's done with his legs this year, and now you're going to give him this full slew of weapons with Kelsey, Worthy, Rice, a combination of Hollywood Brown, Thornton, Juju. Like Patrick Mahomes might throw for 350 yards in this game. I'm not even exaggerating because I don't think that Kansas City could run the ball, and their offense just entirely runs through Patrick Mahomes, and this Raiders defense is able to get got. The only shot that I think that the Raiders have of competing in this game is twofold. They need to get a defensive or special teams big play or score, and that's probably like a Max Crosby strip sack on Mahomes or a tipped pick, if we're being honest. And I also think that they need like a blown coverage touchdown from Trey Tucker. I think you have to spot the Raiders 10-14 points for me to believe that they could win this game. And ultimately, I'm not going to just spot them that, you know, Genty is the Raiders' offensive engine, but the Chiefs, they make you throw the ball. You saw it with Philly when they played against Saquon. Philly, to be fair, like they were very committed to the run game, but you really saw it versus Detroit. They turned that into, hey, Jared Goff, you got to throw. And considering the fact that I don't think the Raiders defense is going to be able to slow down Kansas City by the second half, they're probably going to be in must throw downs over and over again. And Geno Smith this year, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. You can't trust them. So give me Kansas City to win this game. I think Kansas City makes an emphatic statement. I think they really want to let everybody know how back they are. Give me the Chiefs to win 40-13. Up next, we got the Carolina Panthers versus the New York Jets. The Panthers are 3-3, but 0-3 on the road. The Jets are just 0-6 right now. The thing for Carolina that interests me is I want to see what they look like in this football game because they've been a completely different team at home versus on the road this year. And now you're on the road against the worst team in football. If Carolina can't look good in this spot, I won't buy that they're a team worth watching. I guess that's the best way to put it, because even if they win here, it's not like I'm like buying Carolina as a playoff team, but I would buy Carolina as a team that, hey, if my team plays them similar to the end of last year when Bryce Young had competitive games with both of the Super Bowl teams and the Chiefs and the Eagles, it feels like Carolina could be a tough out and a frisky team if they win this game. They'd be above 500 and they would have proven that they could win on the road. I think Carolina's also on a 2-game win streak ever since Rico Dowdle has become the guy. Bryce Young has worked his way back up to a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. With Dowdle's emergence, if you get him and Chuba Hubbard back out there, you can be a run-first team, which I think Carolina always wanted to be. They just weren't getting the production earlier on in the season. Dowdle has had back-to-back 200-plus yard games, so this guy is just emerging as a superstar right now. Tedero McMillan is a really solid piece. So I think Carolina has some talent to believe in week to week viability. Whereas for the Jets, they're 0-6 for a reason. Justin Fields, you could see like numbers wise, he doesn't have an interception this year. It feels like, oh, he's not making mistakes. And people that are Fields defenders will say, look at the numbers. They're not that bad. Like, they're bad. He's just not good. He's a great athlete. And I genuinely mean this not as an insult, but I think Justin Fields' best course of action after this year, when the Jets get out of the contract and release him, would be to go into a Taysom Hill role for a team. Because when Fields gets the ball in open space, he's absolutely dynamic and could score from anywhere on the field. We've seen that throughout his career. But as a quarterback, he's not leading a successful offense. And if you put him in a Taysom Hill role, like, there could be times where he throws the ball. He does have good arm strength. Like, you could get a surprise deep play. You could get him running guys over in the end zone. But ultimately, I think it's not, I don't think it's off the board that Justin Fields gets benched if they lose this game. If they start 0-7, because that's not the time to make a change. To be fair, the best game that they had this year, I thought, was against Tampa when Tyrod Taylor started. So we'll see there. Garrett Wilson probably not going to play in this game either. So I would imagine Carolina wins. I'll take the Panthers to win this game 24-13. I can't trust the Jets offense to do anything. They're coming off of a week where they had a negative 10 net passing yards. It's a terrible showing. We move into a slew of 4 o'clock games that I think could make for some really entertaining and interesting football. And we start with the 2-4 New York Giants, who are coming off of kind of a mini bye, taking on the Denver Broncos, who are 4-2. We will obviously see Jackson Dart versus Bo Nix in this game. I would argue that Jackson Dart has played better football thus far this year than Bo Nix. I think he's been much more dynamic and has made some really interesting plays. And now I don't think Bo Nix is as bad as some people in the national media will tell you, but I don't think he's as good as some Broncos fans will tell you that he is either. So I'll be really interested to see that square off. What does this New York Giants offense look like against a Denver Broncos defense, who I think is particularly pretty solid? Because, they beat the Chargers, and I know, they didn't move the ball up and down the field against the Chargers by any means, but Jackson Dart in his first start was able to get some things going. They looked like a disaster versus the Saints, and then against a pretty injury-depleted Eagles defense, they absolutely cooked. What does the Jackson Dart, Scattaboo, Theo Johnson, Wan'Dale Robinson unit look like against this Broncos defense? Can Jackson Dart evade the number one pass rush in football? I mentioned way earlier in the video talking about the Steelers. They're second in the NFL right now with 20 sacks. The Broncos are first with 30. Okay, like, the Broncos defense does not play no games when it comes to getting sacks. Nick Bonito has 8 right now. He's probably your current defensive player of the year. Can Jackson Dart evade pressure and navigate the pocket the way he did against Philly? Because I know Philly's defense was hurt, but Jackson Dart looked damn impressive navigating that pocket. So that's something to watch if you're a Giants fan. For the opposite side, the Giants have a pretty solid defense. Brian Burns has 7 sacks this year. Like, for perspective, like I just said, Nick Bonito leads the NFL with 8. Brian Burns has been a beast this year. Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, like, that defensive line is going to make things difficult on Bo Nix as well. If the Giants were to win this game, I would guess that it's because they won the turnover battle and they forced Bo Nix into more mistakes than the Broncos defense forced Jackson Dart into. And I don't think that that's an impossibility to have happen. Will I predict it? No. I'm not going to go out on, again, when it comes to this Giants team, I do think that there's going to be some ups and downs, highs and lows, roller coasters. And I think a matchup of your rookie quarterback and your rookie running back versus the best defense in football presents a real opportunity for a low. If I'm a Broncos fan, you can throw on the Giants defense. I know that they just had a good showing versus Philly, and I think that that said more about Philly's offensive woes, but with Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin and these deep threats, you can get these guys open down the field. We saw Philly, Devonta Smith was wide open. Jalen Hurts missed him. Bo Nix has to make those throws in this football game, and if I'm a Broncos fan, just winning this game isn't enough. I need a double-digit point win so I can look at myself and say, hey, we could win the AFC West, and we could be really viable to come out of the AFC this year. that's got a lot going on. Everybody is jumping on the Kansas City bandwagon right now, but the Broncos are 1 win away and 1 Chargers loss away from leading that division. So give me the Broncos to win this game. I think they make a bit of a statement, 28-20. I think it's still a one-scoring game. I don't think Bo Nix does enough to completely shut the door on Jackson Dart having a potential miracle comeback, but I don't think we see it in this contest. One of my favorite games of the week sees the 5-1 Indianapolis Colts take on the 4-2 Chargers. Basically, Justin Herbert, how much can you carry? That's my question going into this game, because obviously the Chargers needed Justin Herbert to do everything and then some last week to beat the Miami Dolphins. The fact that Herbert broke out of that sack, connected on that throw to McConkey to set them up for the field goal, was one of the more impressive plays I've seen this year. It's not even the most impressive Herbert play. That's still the Keenan Allen touchdown versus the Broncos, but that was still a really impressive showing. But now you face the Indianapolis Colts, who, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but nobody expected the Colts to be this good. I don't even think Colts fans expected them to be 5-1 and them to be the best offense in football statistically. The defense is serviceable. It's just good enough to where their high-level offense is what carries the team and the defense keeps them afloat. So I do think that Justin Herbert will be able to have some successful drives in this game, but I don't think that they could afford for him to be stagnant for a second. I know the Jesse Minter defense versus the Colts offense is going to be must watch because the Colts lead the NFL in points per game. The Colts are top 5 in both passing and running yards right now. Jonathan Taylor is having an Offensive Player of the Year season. Daniel Jones is having a really, really resurgent season. And then you do have that Jesse Minter defense that is really strong. And those two are going to clash and go head to head. Can you force Daniel Jones into old Daniel Jones? That's the path to victory for the Chargers, right? Justin Herbert, you have the better quarterback. Show it. Make Daniel Jones make a couple mistakes. That's how the Rams won. Yes, it helped the Rams a couple touchdowns taken off the board, no doubt about it. But can you force Daniel Jones to give Justin Herbert extra possessions? That would be the way that I believe the Chargers win this game. My answer to that question is no. I think that the Colts are too in sync right now offensively. Shane Steichen isn't asking Daniel Jones to do much. Jonathan Taylor will be able to run the ball. We saw Devon Achane was able to run the ball at a pretty well level against the Chargers, and I think Jonathan Taylor is better, and I think as well the Colts offensive line is better. I think the Colts are able to control the tempo of this game, dominate the time of possession, and as long as Daniel Jones keeps that ball secure, the Colts should win this football game. I don't think it's super high scoring because I do think that the Chargers defense is solid. Give me a 24-20 victory for the Indianapolis Colts in Los Angeles. What might turn out to be the most fun watch of the week is the Washington Commanders 3-3 taking on the 2-3-1 Dallas Cowboys. Commanders opened at 2.5-point favorites, down to 1.5. It's kind of just basically a pick'em game at this point. Jaden Daniels, he's come off of injury. The last 2 weeks, I think he's looked decent. I don't think he's looked spectacular. Dak Prescott, he's looking spectacular this season, but the success for the team is not there. CeeDee Lamb might play in this game. Terry McLaurin might play in this game. As of recording, I have no fucking clue. So obviously if one of them plays and the other one doesn't, that does change some things. So I'm gonna operate as if both of them are playing, because I believe they both practiced on Wednesday, which is usually a good sign of playing Sunday. If not, we'll talk about it when we get there. So what do I think that this game is going to look like? I think this game is going to look like a fireworks show. I think that coming off of the loss to the Chicago Bears, we're going to see that Jaden Daniels is looking to avenge that loss and play better football. He had 2 turnovers in that game that I thought were really, really bad. The interception was a disaster. The fumble, weather conditions, etc. And Dak and this Cowboys offense week after week have been putting up points. There's just kind of no way around it. For the Commanders, their path to victory is to rely on being the best rushing attack in football, which statistically they have been. I think you can run the ball against the Dallas Cowboys. We saw what Rico Dowdle and the Panthers offense did to them last week. Bill Krosky-Merritt is a really solid player. I know he has a little bit of fumbling issues, but the yards per carry are just undeniable. And even after fumbling, the Commanders continued to feed him rushes, so I do feel like he's taken over as the lead back in this team. Jaden Daniels is getting healthier and healthier. I thought we saw him run a decent amount versus Chicago, and he looked pretty decent. Deebo Samuel, I'm interested to see if they can draw up some trick plays for him in this game. Zach Ertz, Terry McLaurin. If you can get that Commanders offense back to full strength, I'll be really excited because I don't think we've seen, maybe week 1 this year we saw it, but even at that, Krosky Merritt wasn't fully in the system yet. I think this could be the best showing yet of the season for the Commanders offense. On the other side for Dallas, I think you can move the ball on the Commanders. Their defense is better than the talent there because of Dan Quinn, and I think he deserves his flowers for that. But I think when it's going up against what I believe with CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 offensive unit in football in the Dallas Cowboys, it's not going to matter. So that's where I believe we get fireworks. And the path to the Cowboys' victory is outscore the Commanders. Maybe you force Jaden into some turnovers, maybe you don't. Your offensive personnel might be better than theirs, and you might just be able to win a shootout. We look back to the tie versus Green Bay, 40-40. You couldn't stop the Packers at all, but you were just going blow for blow with them. The same thing with the Giants. That, what was it, 40-37 in overtime? You couldn't stop them, but you were just going blow for blow for them. I think this could be like a heavyweight fight where we just see, oh, Jaden Daniels throws the ball, touchdown, Deebo Samuel, oh, Dak Prescott, George Pickens, boom, oh my God, Bill Krosky Merritt, Javonte Williams, boom, 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 boom. That's how I feel about this football game. Ultimately, I'm going to pick the Commanders because I do think that their rushing attack could potentially keep Dak off the field a little bit, but I think we're due for fireworks. Give me the Commanders to win this game 38-30. I think it's a fun game, and I think Dallas is alive at the end, driving down the field and just doesn't get it done. The 3-1-1 Green Bay Packers take on the Arizona Cardinals, who are 2-4. I don't know if Kyler's going to play in this game. I think that if Kyler does play, this feels like one of them weird games where the Packers are super young. They struggle to put teams away. Kyler Murray, every once a month, has a monster day where he makes a game competitive and close. And I don't know why. There's no statistical reason for this one. A lot of times I back up my opinion with stats and tell you guys stats. I just have kind of a gut feeling that this game is going to be closer than it should be. And maybe that just says kind of what I feel about Green Bay. And, you know, do I trust them? Just some funky shit's going to go down in this game. Ultimately, from a real life NFL like standpoint, statistically, like what we know about these teams, Green Bay should be able to move the ball. The run defense for Arizona is actually pretty decent. So I do think it's going to be on Jordan Love to throw the ball in this game. But you got guys like Tucker Kraft, Golden, Dobbs, that like I think Jordan Love should be able to sustain a pretty solid passing attack in this one. And if Kyler doesn't play, I know Brissett just had a pretty good day against the Colts. I doubt we see that again. I think the Green Bay pass rush gets home. Maybe this is a big Micah Parsons game. I could see that coming to fruition as well. Again, no statistical analysis behind it. Weird gut feeling this is going to be a more competitive game than it should be. Give me the Packers to win on a walk-off field goal, 27-24. I know that sounds crazy. And maybe we'll come back and the Packers will win 30-10 and you'll be like, yeah, great analysis, Dylan. But it just feels funky to me. We have the 3-2 Atlanta Falcons traveling to San Francisco to take on the 4-2 Niners. I'm not sure who is and who isn't playing for the Niners. Again, just kind of we're at that point in the season where the injuries are starting to pile up. Is it going to be Mac Jones? Is it going to be Brock Purdy? I don't know. I think Kittle's going to be back out there. I don't think Ricky Pearsall is going to be back out there. When it comes to this football game, my biggest question is San Francisco's defense without Nick Bosa, without Fred Warner, just too injury depleted to stop this Falcons offense? Because we saw against Buffalo, and Buffalo's not a good run defense by any means, but Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier just had their way. Drake London had a monster day. I think Bijan and Drake London accounted for like 350 of the 450 Falcons offensive yards, something like that. You can look it up, but it's something like that. That allows Atlanta to control the clock and control the game and limit possessions for the other team. As long as Michael Penix doesn't make mistakes, which he almost threw a pick 6 versus Buffalo that could have completely changed that game right before right after the 2-minute warning. If you watched, you know exactly the play that I'm talking about. Bill's linebacker's probably still kicking himself over not picking that one off because that was a gift from Michael Penix that he just did not accept. I think it's interesting that San Francisco is favored in this game. I would have thought coming off of the loss that they had last week and Atlanta's win that Atlanta would be favored in this spot. I also think Atlanta's defensive line could cause some real problems for either Purdy or Mac Jones. Mac Jones, we know, is not very mobile, and Purdy's coming off of a foot injury that I think will limit his mobility. And Atlanta's pass defense this year statistically is the best in the NFL, and I think it's because that pass rush that they have and the blitz. Like, Raheem Morris has done a great job with this Falcons defense. I don't think that's talked about enough because of how just exciting Bijan is, but the pass rush for Atlanta is very spread out. It's not just one guy, but it feels like they get so many pressures on opposing quarterbacks that lead to mistakes. And whether it's Purdy or Mac Jones, I think both are susceptible to that. If the Niners are going to win this game, I think it's going to be on the back of like a vintage McCaffrey and Shanahan out coaching Raheem Morris, which isn't off the board by any means, but I'm going to pick Atlanta to win this game. I think the Niners injuries just catch up to them. They start to become too much. And I'm going to take Atlanta to win in this spot, 27-17 in San Francisco. We got a pretty fun Monday night doubleheader. The 5-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 3-0 on the road, take on the 4-2 Detroit Lions, who are 2-0 at home. Detroit, I have some real questions about their culture right now, which feels odd to say for a Dan Campbell-led team, but they are very in their heads about the Kansas City loss. Obviously, Brian Branch suspended for the one game. That was weird. Kirby Joseph with a lot of tweets post-game. I think it was like 20 plus talking about the officiating. And then Dan Campbell talking about the Jared Goff thing still this week, whereas this game could determine the 1 seed in the NFC. It feels like you're living a little bit too much in the past for my liking personally. Could that come back to bite them? Ultimately, if Detroit can establish the run game in this game with Gibbs and Montgomery, I think that they should win. I don't know if they can. Obviously Detroit last year kind of had their way, and they were able to really, really run the ball against whoever they wanted. Twice this year, we've seen Green Bay and now Kansas City take away the run game, and it turned into a, can Jared Goff beat us? And so far the answer is no. They're 0-2 in those spots. It's not to say that that's going to be a macro picture for the whole season. I don't think Jared Goff's a bad quarterback, but I think ultimately the two teams that have made the Detroit Lions offense one-dimensional this year, the Packers and the Chiefs, have won those games and have won them pretty comfortably. With Vita Vea in the middle, Levante David, a decent defensive line, I think it's possible that this game turns into Baker Mayfield versus Jared Goff. And in that micro of which quarterback would I rather have, my answer is Baker. However, we look at Baker's weapons. Bucky Irving, probably not playing. Mike Evans, not playing. Emeka Egbuka, not playing. Not sure about Chris Godwin. And all of a sudden, it's Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson, and Cade Otton for Baker versus Goff with still a good offensive line. You still got, Sewell out there, who could be the best tackle in football. In the receiving game, you still have Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, home field advantage, Detroit going crazy, Campbell, trick plays, whatever it must be. I think we're in for a really fun game here. I think if Baker wins this game, the Buccaneers will be the 1 seed in the NFC, and that dude's going to be the MVP. I'm going to pick the Lions in this spot. I still think Baker's going to win the MVP, but the deck feels stacked in their favor. I know that they got some injuries on the defense and Branch is out, but this is a spot that I think Detroit has to win. One, I think there's way more pressure on them. For Tampa to start 5-2 without ever having their full lineup, I think is fine. Detroit, they have to win this game. Like, if they win this game, they'll be like the 1 seed in the NFC, but if they lose this game, and then all of a sudden, the Packers already a game up on you in terms of they've beaten you, now you're even further behind Tampa for a potential 1 seed. What does Philly turn out to be? Detroit quickly teeters on being a road wildcard team based on the result of this game when we look back on it in a few months, I think. So Detroit, big situation here, big spot for them. I think that they win. I don't think they're able to completely contain Baker. I think this is one of those games that we look back on it and we're like, man, Jared Goff, top 10 guy, because I think that he throws for 300 plus yards and 3 to 4 touchdowns in this spot. Give me Detroit to win 35-31 at home. And then what I think is one of the more interesting games of the week, although starting at 10 p.m. is brutal for me, but a real litmus test for both of these teams as the 2-3 Texans coming off of the bye travel to Seattle to take on the 4-2 Seahawks. Houston 2-0 going into their bye. They started off 0-3. seem to get it going against the Titans and a depleted Ravens team. How much stock do you put in it? I don't know. That's what this game's going to tell me, because Seattle clearly has a real defense. We saw what they did last week to Jacksonville's offense. They made them almost nothing. That defensive line, how does CJ Stroud navigate it? Do the Texans have a real rushing attack now with the Nick Chubb, Woody Marks combination? It looked like they did the last 2 weeks, but again, you take it with a little bit of a grain of salt just because of the defenses that they were facing. Nico Collins, I would love to see him more involved. And then on the flip side, the Seahawks are 4-2. I think they might be playing the best football of any team in the NFC West right now, despite not winning it. Darnold and JSN have a real connection. Smith and Jigba is the #1 receiver right now in the NFL in terms of receiving yards per game. You expect him to potentially be matched up against Derek Stingley. Like, grab your popcorn. Absolutely, yes, please. And how does Sam Darnold navigate in a spot against the Texans defense? Because if we know one thing about Darnold, what has gotten to him in his career is pressure. And Will Anderson Jr., Daniil Hunter, and them boys in Houston are going to get pressure. It's just going to happen. Seattle's offensive line has been better this year than I expected. They're not going to stop Houston's defensive line. I think that both of these quarterbacks are going to see a lot of pressure in this game, and it could be who makes the least amount of mistakes. And going into it, I don't know who that is. I don't. But I am going to pick the upset here. I'm going to go with Houston. I think that an extra week to prepare, bye week, the rest, a little bit more of a sense of urgency with them. And I like the way they match up, man. I do. I like this matchup for Houston. Give me the Texans 24-21. I think it's close. I think it's competitive. But I'm going to take H-Town to win this football game. So, as always, those are just my predictions. Be sure to leave yours in the comment section below. What do you agree with me with? What do you disagree with me on? If you made it this far in the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button. It lets me know that you guys like these style of videos out on the channel. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel and you do love the NFL, I'd appreciate it if you hit that button, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.